Something strange happens after genuine spiritual awakening. Things you used to do every day just stop. Not from discipline, not from deciding they're bad. You simply lose the ability to continue them. You try to engage with old habits and your entire being says no. And the weirdest part, you can't even remember when you stopped. It just happened naturally, quietly, without effort. Carl Jung discovered that authentic spiritual awakening creates automatic behavioral changes that occur without conscious effort. You don't force yourself to quit things. They fall away organically because your consciousness has shifted to a level where those behaviors simply don't fit anymore. And what falls away reveals exactly how deep your transformation has gone. Today I'm revealing the things Jung observed that awakened people quietly quit. Not because they're trying to be spiritual, not because they read they should, but because their consciousness evolved to a point where these behaviors became psychologically impossible to continue. And if you're experiencing this quiet quitting, it's one of the clearest signs your awakening is genuine. Here's what Jung understood that changes everything. Real transformation doesn't come from willpower. It comes from shifts in consciousness that make old behaviors organically impossible. You don't quit things because you force yourself. You quit them because you've outgrown them at a consciousness level where continuing would be like wearing children's clothes as an adult. They simply don't fit. Jung called this the natural shedding. Like a snake outgrowing its skin or a tree dropping dead leaves, awakened consciousness automatically releases what no longer serves it. You don't decide to shed. Shedding happens when the old no longer fits the new. And attempting to maintain behaviors your consciousness has outgrown creates internal crisis. Most people trying to be spiritual force behavioral changes through discipline. Stop gossiping because it's unenlightened. Meditate because awakened people should. But Jung observed that genuinely awakened individuals don't force anything. Things fall away naturally when consciousness shifts. And this natural falling away, not forced elimination, is proof the transformation is real. The first thing that quietly falls away will surprise you. Jung's first observation. After awakening, you quit pretending to be interested in things you're not actually interested in. Not gradually, completely. You can't generate fake enthusiasm anymore. Can't perform interest in conversations that bore you. Can't pretend to care about topics that feel meaningless. The ability to mask your disinterest dissolves. Before awakening, you probably faked interest constantly. Social situations required it. Politeness demanded it. You'd nod along to conversations you didn't care about. Ask questions about things you weren't interested in. Perform engagement you didn't feel. This wasn't lying exactly. It was social lubrication. But Jung discovered that awakening kills this capacity. Not through choosing to be more honest, through losing the psychological mechanism that generates false interest. Your consciousness becomes too integrated to split itself into the performing parts social convention requires. One of Jung's patients described this. I stopped being able to fake interest in small talk. Someone would tell me about their vacation and I'd just have nothing. No questions, no enthusiasm. Not from rudeness, from genuine inability to pretend I cared. Jung said awakening had dissolved my social performance capacity. I could only be authentic now, and authentic me wasn't interested in surface conversation. This is what Jung meant by the death of social performance. You're not being difficult. You literally can't generate the false responses anymore. Your consciousness is too whole to fragment into performing and being simultaneously. You'll recognize this if you've become difficult in social situations. If people say you've changed, become distant, or aren't trying anymore. But you're not trying less. You've lost the ability to pretend. And this inability is proof of integration, not rudeness. Jung's second observation. Awakened people quit consuming content mindlessly. No more scrolling through social media for hours. No more binge-watching shows you don't even enjoy. No more filling every moment with information, entertainment, or distraction. The compulsion to consume just vanishes. Think about how you used to consume content, automatically checking your phone, scrolling without purpose, watching shows you weren't even paying attention to, reading articles you immediately forgot. This wasn't conscious choice. It was automatic behavior filling space you couldn't tolerate being empty. But Jung discovered that awakened consciousness becomes comfortable with emptiness. You don't need constant input to feel okay. You can sit with nothing happening and be fine. And without the need to fill space, the consumption compulsion disappears. One of Jung's analyzans described this. I realized I hadn't been on social media in weeks, not from deleting my accounts or forcing myself to stop, from genuinely forgetting it existed. The drive to constantly consume had dissolved. Jung said awakening had eliminated my fear of emptiness. I could be alone with nothing happening and feel complete. The consumption was filling a void that no longer existed. This is what Jung meant by the end of avoidance consumption. You're not consuming less from discipline. You've eliminated the psychological need that was driving consumption. The void you were filling doesn't exist anymore. You'll notice screens lose their pull. Hours pass without checking your phone. You can't remember the last time you scrolled mindlessly. This isn't self-control, it's the absence of compulsion. Here's what Jung observed. After awakening, you quit explaining yourself to people who don't understand you. Not from arrogance, from recognition that explaining is pointless. Some people will get you, most won't. And you become completely okay with that, without needing to convince anyone. Before awakening, you probably over-explained constantly, justifying your choices, defending your decisions, trying to make people understand your perspective. You needed others to get you, to validate your choices, to agree your path made sense. But Jung discovered that awakened individuals lose this need, not through deciding explanation is pointless, through genuine indifference to whether others understand. They become so solid in their own knowing that external comprehension becomes irrelevant. One of Jung's patients described this shift. People would question my choices and I'd just shrug, not defensively, not from not caring about them, but from recognizing that explaining my awakened perspective to someone at a different consciousness level was impossible. Jung said I'd stop needing external validation. My knowing was internal now. Whether others understood was their business, not mine. This is what Jung meant by the end of justification. You're not being closed off. You've eliminated the need for others to understand or approve of your path. You trust your knowing even when no one else does. You'll recognize this if you've stopped explaining your life choices. If people don't understand you and you're genuinely fine with that. If you've become comfortable being misunderstood without needing to correct the misunderstanding. Jung's fourth observation: awakened people quit maintaining relationships that have died, not dramatically ending them, just stopping the artificial maintenance. No more forced phone calls, no more obligatory meetups, no more keeping connection alive through sheer will when the connection has naturally ended. Think about relationships you've maintained past their natural end. Friendships that ran their course but you kept going because ending felt harsh. Family relationships you forced because you felt you should. Connections you maintained through obligation rather than genuine desire. But Jung discovered that awakened consciousness stops this maintenance, not through cutting people off, through recognizing when connection has naturally completed and letting it go without guilt. Some relationships are meant to be temporary. Awakening helps you honor that. One of Jung's analysans described this: I stopped calling certain friends, not from conflict, from recognizing our connection had completed. We'd grown in different directions. Maintaining the relationship was forcing something that had naturally ended. Jung said, awakening gave me permission to release relationships that had served their purpose. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. This is what Jung meant by honoring natural endings. You're not abandoning people. You're recognizing when relationships have completed and allowing them to end rather than artificially extending them past their natural conclusion. You'll notice your circle has dramatically shrunk, without you consciously choosing to shrink it. Relationships fell away without drama. You're not in contact with people you used to see regularly. This isn't isolation. It's releasing what's completed. If you're quietly quitting these things, pretending to be interested, mindless consumption, explaining yourself, maintaining dead relationships, Jung would say, you're not becoming antisocial. Your consciousness has shifted to a level where these behaviors no longer fit. Before we continue, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Now, these final things reveal the deepest shifts. Jung's fifth observation. After awakening, you quit seeking external validation, not reduce it, eliminate it. The need for others to approve, agree, or validate your choices dissolves. You become internally referenced rather than externally validated. And this shift is one of the clearest signs of genuine transformation. Before awakening, you probably checked constantly for validation. Does this look good? Is this the right choice? Do they approve? Your sense of okayness came from external confirmation. You needed others to validate you to feel valid. But Jung discovered that awakening creates internal validation that makes external validation irrelevant. Not through forcing yourself to not care, through finding a source of validation within that's more reliable than anything external. One of Jung's patients described this elimination. I realized I'd stopped posting on social media, not from deciding it was bad, from recognizing I didn't need the validation anymore. Likes, comments, approval from strangers. None of it meant anything because I'd found validation internally. Jung said this was one of the clearest signs of individuation. External validation becomes unnecessary when internal validation is solid. This is what Jung meant by self-authorization. You're not trying to not care what others think. You genuinely don't need their approval because you found approval within. Your okayness doesn't depend on external confirmation anymore. You'll recognize this if you've stopped seeking feedback constantly. If you make decisions without needing consensus. If you're completely comfortable with choices others disapprove of because you trust your internal knowing. Here's what Jung observed. Awakened people quit forcing things to happen. Relationships, opportunities, outcomes. If they require force, they're released. Not from giving up, but from trusting that what's meant for you flows naturally, and what requires force isn't aligned. Think about how much you used to force. Forced relationships to work. Forced opportunities to happen. Forced yourself to want things you thought you should want. Pushed, manipulated, controlled to make life look how you thought it should look. But Jung discovered that awakening eliminates forcing, not through laziness, through trust. You begin to recognize that what's aligned comes naturally, and what requires constant force is misaligned. And you'd rather have nothing than have something that requires constant effort to maintain. One of Jung's analysans described this. I stopped pushing. Career opportunities that required force, I let go. Relationships that required constant effort, I released. Jung said awakening had taught me to recognize alignment. What flows is meant for you. What you have to force isn't. I'd rather wait for what's aligned than force what's not. This is what Jung meant by alignment over effort. You're not lazy or passive. You've learned to recognize what's genuinely yours versus what you're trying to make yours through force. And you only engage with what's actually aligned. You'll notice opportunities you would have fought for, you now release easily. Relationships you would have clung to, you now let go without struggle. If it requires force, you're no longer interested. Jung's seventh observation. After awakening, you quit trying to prove anything to anyone. Your worth, your intelligence, your spirituality, your success. The need to demonstrate value to others completely dissolves. You know what you are without needing anyone else to know it. Before awakening, you probably felt compelled to prove yourself constantly. Prove you're smart. Prove you're successful. Prove you're spiritual. Prove you matter. Your sense of worth required others acknowledging it. But Jung discovered that awakened individuals lose this compulsion, not through deciding proving is beneath them, through knowing their worth internally so completely that external acknowledgement becomes irrelevant. One of Jung's patients described this. I stopped mentioning my achievements, stopped displaying credentials, stopped subtle status signaling, not from false humility, from genuine disinterest in proving anything. Jung said, this was one of the most reliable indicators of genuine awakening. When you know who you are internally, you don't need anyone else to know it. This is what Jung meant by the end of performance. You're not pretending to be humble. You've eliminated the psychological need to be seen as valuable. Your worth is internal now. Whether others recognize it is irrelevant. You'll recognize this if you've stopped mentioning your accomplishments. If you're comfortable with people underestimating you. If you know your value without needing to display it. Things you quietly quit after spiritual awakening. Pretending to be interested. Social performance capacity dissolves. Consuming content mindlessly. Emptiness becomes comfortable. Explaining yourself. Need for external understanding vanishes. Maintaining dead relationships. Honoring natural endings. Seeking external validation. Internal validation becomes sufficient. Forcing anything. Alignment replaces effort. Trying to prove anything, worth becomes internally known. Jung would want you to understand. These aren't changes you force through discipline. They're natural results of consciousness shifting. You don't decide to quit these things. You discover you've already quit them. And this organic falling away without effort is proof your transformation is genuine. Most people trying to be spiritual force behavioral changes. But forced change is ego trying to be spiritual. Real awakening creates automatic shifts. Things fall away because your consciousness has outgrown them. You're not trying to be different. You've become different at a level where old behaviors no longer fit. If you're experiencing this quiet quitting, trust it. Don't force yourself back into old behaviors to seem normal. Don't judge yourself for changing. You're not becoming antisocial or difficult. You're becoming authentic. And authentic you has naturally released what doesn't serve anymore. If you've quietly quit these things, pretending, consuming mindlessly, explaining, maintaining dead relationships, seeking validation, forcing outcomes, proving worth, Jung would tell you, these changes confirm your awakening is real. You're not choosing to be different. You've transformed at a level where old behaviors became impossible. Don't try to force yourself back to how you were to make others comfortable. Don't judge your natural shedding as antisocial or wrong. Your consciousness has evolved. What's falling away isn't serving your evolution anymore. Let it go without guilt. Trust that what's meant to stay will stay naturally. What requires force to maintain isn't aligned anymore. Your quiet quitting is wisdom, not withdrawal. You're not losing things, you're outgrowing them. And outgrowing is exactly what transformation looks like when it's genuine. Subscribe to explore Jung's insights on natural transformation after awakening. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now.